Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. Thought I'd have a little bit of fun since it was Halloween, so happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to the program tonight. I got a great guest that's going to be joining me here shortly in just a moment or two. But before I bring her on, let me just make a couple of quick points. As you've all been listening in the last few weeks, you've heard me mention that next week on November 7th, Mr. Billy Casper, a true legend of the game, is going to be joining us here on Golf Talk Live. He and Kent Novus from the 9-Iron Sports Energy Drink is going to be, Sports Hydration Drink is going to be joining us here next week with Billy Casper. We're going to talk a little bit about the hydration drink that both of them are involved with. And then, of course, Billy's going to stick around and talk a little bit about his new book, The Big Three and Me, and also maybe share some stories of his career. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm very excited to have him on the program next week. If you're tuning into the program live, you're more than welcome to call in and say hello to myself or my guest throughout the evening. The number to call is area code 646-716-4667. Or if you're a little bit shy and don't want to talk on live radio, you can certainly email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com if you have some questions that you want to pose throughout the program. That, again, is ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Also, remember to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/golftalkliveblog, and certainly always appreciate it if you would throw a few likes our way. And although I don't do a lot of Twittering, I do a little bit here and there. You can get me on Twitter at TedandBuckCEO. That's my Twitter handle there, so you can certainly reach me through Twitter as well. And lastly, obviously, I want you to visit the website blog, which is www.golftalkliveblog.com. Got some products up there. Those of you that are getting ready, gearing up to do some Christmas shopping in the next few weeks, there's a couple of great products there, and also some great books of past guests that have been on the program. Again, happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. Tonight I'm very honored to have joining me author and photographer Diana DeLucia. And over the last few years, Diana has been very diligently working on her latest book called Golf Club World Behind the Gates. And let me tell you, I received a copy from Diana. She very generously sent me out, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. The book is filled with really some breathtaking photography, a lot of insightful interviews, and some exquisite recipes. You'll be glad that you tuned in tonight as Diana and I talk about some of the interviews with owners, managers, club pros, and some gourmet chefs from some of the most prestigious golf clubs around the world. So without any further hesitation, let me bring her on. Welcome to the show, Diana.
Hi, Ted. How are you? Great to hear your voice again.
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you very, very much. Before we start, Diana, let me just very quickly let the listeners know where they can get a copy of this book, and then we'll talk a little bit about your background and so forth. I know that you said that you can get it at Amazon.com.
That's right. You can get it at Amazon.com under Golf Club World Behind the Gates. And if you want an autographed copy, you can get it from my website at www.golfclubworld.net. That's golfclubworld.net for an autographed copy.
Perfect. So remember that. We'll put that throughout the program as well, Diana, just to remind everybody. But I wanted to get that out there in case anybody wants to get that. And this is, as I said to you off the air earlier this afternoon, it's absolutely a fantastic book. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I want to just talk a little bit about. Obviously, I know you're from Australia. That's correct.
Correct. I'm Australian.
Right. And
I
how
have
often
been in the United States for About 11 years, but I am an Australian citizen.
Wow. And how often do you go back?
I went back every other year for about 8 years, and I've probably gone back twice since then because my family comes over here.
Right. And you're up in the Northeast, right, in the Connecticut area, I believe?
I live in Avon, Connecticut.
Right. Let me ask you, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you, what was very unique about your situation is you've been very well received over the years in the food industry for photographing really some famous chefs and their culinary creations for Restaurant Insider magazine. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Restaurant Insider, the New York Restaurant Insider was a creation that I started with my then husband. He was a web developer, and I started food photography by accident because I was actually a corporate law photographer because they used to build law websites. But he got an opportunity to build a website for a restaurant company, and I went in to do the food, and I discovered that I was very good at food photography. And that was where the whole idea of the Restaurant Insider came from, because I wanted to do more food photography, and I have a background in casting and modeling and acting, and I can't explain how the vision came, but it came, and we produced a magazine that was 36 pages, and Cirio Macchione was the cover story, and I gave away a lot of things to make it happen, and we printed it, and it was a success for 6 years. And I pretty much met every fine dining chef and worked for them in that time frame. We covered them extensively, though. We would do like a 15-page article on a chef.
Right. Wow.
Well, it was very passionately done, though. It was a great product. But the recession hit, and we closed the magazine.
Yeah, and obviously everybody at some point with this recessions that we've all been experiencing, there's, that's been one of the fallouts from it. But the reason why I wanted to really give you an opportunity to talk about that, I found it very intriguing because this particular book obviously focuses on the golfing world, which is obviously an area that I'm very passionate about. And I just found it very interesting that your background is really not golf. And so it sort of leads me to this question is, why golf? What was the motivation behind creating this book?
Well, I wanted to produce I had done several other cookbooks for other people, and I wanted to produce a cookbook, and it was originally going to be a cookbook. I wanted to find another avenue for fine dining other than New York. So I started thinking, and I wanted to make a book of my own, and it was originally going to be a cookbook, which it turned out to be much more than a cookbook. And I kind of started to think about other avenues where fine dining might be situated, and I thought I should illuminate those areas. And I started thinking about luxury sports like golf and country clubs and yacht clubs and things like that. And I decided upon country clubs and golf clubs, and that kind of led me to golf.
And it's, like I said a few times here already, it's really a fantastic book. I mean, unfortunately, this is an audio program, so I don't have the liberty of showing the listeners just the extent of the photography that's in here, but it's a really, really great job. And also, I just wanted to make mention, while we're on the subject of photography real quick here, you had some others some great photographers that joined you in this particular project, and you gave me some names here earlier, Larry Lambrecht, Patrick O'Brien, and Joanne Doft, and I'm going to probably not pronounce this correct, but Chen Wei Wen? That's
correct, in China.
Okay, right. Now, they obviously helped you out with some of the photography in here, and it's just, as I said, you can't really do it justice with audio, but obviously we want the listeners to go out there and get a copy so they can appreciate it as well. But it's not only some great photography of the courses and the landscape involved, but obviously each of the courses here have provided some recipes and things like that, and you've got some great food photography, which obviously you're specializing in. and including the recipes as well. So it's just a fantastic visual book. Very, very thick. There's I believe, over 400 pages to the book. So it's just a really, and I was just kind of interested because the fact that your background isn't really in golf. In fact, you're not a golfer yourself, correct?
Not at this point, but I think
No.
Jason McCarthy over at Sabonic is going to give me a lesson.
Right, and that was kind of how you kind of began the book, was at Sabonic Golf Club in Southampton, correct? That was where
That's
you sort
correct.
of developed the vision?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And,
they were my first supporter. They really believed in my project.
And just for those of you that aren't familiar with that particular golf club, that's a Jack Nicklaus and a Tom Doak design course, which obviously there's only ever going to be one. Tell us a little bit about that course, just briefly. We'll get into it a little bit more later on, but just a little bit, because since it was sort of instrumental in sort of starting this project off.
Sabonic is a very special place on Earth. It's located in Southampton. It was designed by Tom Doak and Jack Nicklaus, and when the clubhouse is designed by Hart Howerton, the entire property is totally like perfect in every way, but not. It's understated. It's not overstated. The culinary aspect of the club is very important to me. They have a great chef his name is Anthony Giacobinello, and he has a background that is second to none. He worked with Alain Ducasse. He worked with Daniel Ballou in New York. He worked with Le Cirque, and he was French trained, and he brings something to Sabonic's culinary that it's kind of like golf food, but with a high-end aspect, with the best ingredients that you can find. And Anthony is a sensation.
Now, the owner, Michael Pascucci, is the owner of Sabonic Golf Club. And I was reading here through some of the notes here that you had from your interview in the book and that. What was sort of, when you interviewed him, what was some of the key things that motivated him to do this, to develop this particular club?
I would say that Michael, he came from a regular family, and he worked his way up. He had a marketing company. I think he was in something like car rentals, and he worked his way up to owning a television station and a radio station on the island, and I do believe his background is definitely in marketing. And then he decided that he wanted to buy a golf course, and he wanted the best golf course with the best land and the finest designers and the finest of everything, and he made it happen.
Wow. And
if you read the interview, obviously I'm not going to state everything, but if you read the interview, you'll read that story in depth.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I like about the book, what's kind of intriguing about it to me, Diana, is it's not just a book put together with some photos and a little bit about the golf course. You actually went to a lot of effort to interview key people within the different golf clubs. Again, Michael being one, the owners. You also interviewed the club pros, in most cases, or if not all cases, the managers of the club. And also, of course, you went as far as to interview and speak with a lot of the chefs. So it's a very in-depth book, and I found it very, very interesting. And I obviously haven't read through the whole thing, but certainly I'm going to be digging into it the next weeks and that. It's going to be my project to read through the whole book. But what I found very fascinating about it, though, was the detail that you put in this book. It's not like any other golf book I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of different golf books out there. It's very unique. It's kind of refreshing because it gives you a whole different perspective of these different clubs. It's not just a matter of the golf side of it. It's the people behind it, and also some of the food that's coming out of that particular area or region. And you've obviously interviewed people from all over the world. It's not just here in the United States. Some of the courses that you were involved with were over in Singapore, and I believe Indonesia was one of the other ones I saw. So it's a very global feel, hence the name Golf Club World. So obviously you had a lot of thought and put together, and it was quite a lengthy project, was it not?
It took me 3.5 years to produce from the beginning to the end. And that was mainly because I was going from a magazine environment to a book format. So I had to figure out, I knew I could do it, because I'd been doing it for 6 years. I just needed to do it on a bigger scale. And I just planned it out, and I had a lot of help from Golf China. I really needed help with Asian clubs because I didn't know anything about Asian clubs. And I knew they would have really good culinary recipes, and I thought they would be a great asset, and they were. And I went on a LinkedIn group called China Golf and posted a few questions out there, and I met a man called Werner J. Son of Asia Pacific Leisure Group, and he was really instrumental in helping me with the Asian clubs. He helped me identify which ones were really good and which ones could be good stories and which ones were good to highlight.
Right, and that's important too, because obviously, as most in the golf business know, that the Asian market, particularly in China, is still fairly new in a lot of ways, even though there's some great courses there now compared to here in the United States and elsewhere, Europe and so forth. It's still a fairly new market. A lot of top designers and players as well are going over there and doing. I think Jack Nicklaus has several courses over there now in China. So it's a fairly new market. So to be able to get your foot in the door there with somebody that knows what to look for, and that is certainly a big asset, and it certainly shows in your book.
Well, the actual, Ted, the golf club Foshan, I actually just found out after we talked earlier today that Foshan I told you they had the European Tour event there, and they have just signed up for the next 10 years for the same event. So wow. I'm really proud of Foshan. They're very new. They're only about a year and a half old, and now they have that event for 10 years.
Well, and they've really gravitated to the golf market, and as I said, and most notable, players like Jack Nicklaus, and I believe Arnold Palmer has been over there as well as I'm sure many others. It's just a very new market, and they've just embraced it. It was very much like it was some years back in Japan. Obviously, Japan doesn't have the geographical size to build too many more courses, if any, right now. But China is still a relatively new market, so it's great that you were able to showcase some of that in your book as well. One of the things, Diana, that I wanted to ask you tonight with this book is, again, just kind of going back to the first question, why golf? How did you go about putting this together? I mean, obviously, not being in the golf industry, you probably didn't have a lot of contacts in the golf, but how did you sort of go about rounding the courses up, and why did you choose the courses that you did? I mean, obviously, we don't have time to go through every single one of them, and we'll talk about a few of them along the way, but just kind of give us a little bit of an insight as to what your thought process was. How am I going to go about this, and how you put them together? Well,
originally I thought about what clubs I could put in this book globally, and I kind of did a lot of research. I had 4 categories, and the categories were based on the staff members. They had to have interesting stories. Then I had culinary was a really big deal. They didn't need to be fine dining, but they had to have a good food basis that was outstanding in some way. And it didn't need to be like fine dining. It just needed to be like really creative and have a good storyline behind it. The golf course had to have something amazing about it. It didn't need to be the best in the world. It didn't need to be Augusta. It needed to be something that had a great story behind it, like everything else. And the clubhouse interior design was also a factor.
Well, and sure. I mean, and as I said earlier, you don't want to have, obviously I would imagine that when you put this book out that you didn't want to have something that was going to sort of fit along with everybody else's book. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic books out there that display golf courses and talk, and I've done interviews and things like that. But again, yours is very unique compared to what's out there on the market, and so you've actually found a niche, if you will, in creating this book that I really haven't seen before, and I've seen, as I said earlier, a lot of different books. Did you meet any sort of resistance along the way when you were sort of approaching some of the different courses? Did you find that some of them, well, I don't know if I want to, do that or commit that much to it, or did you find that they were fairly receptive to what your vision was?
At the beginning, I didn't know a lot about golf, but I knew a lot about food. And my food industry people, if you were in the golf industry and you were in culinary, they knew who I was. So right. I had an insider perspective already. I just didn't know about golf. I'm trying to word this correctly. So what I would say is that I was trying to find other avenues in fine dining that I could highlight, but it grew into much more than that because I learned that there were this amazing group of people in golf from my trip to Zabonic, from my meetings with other clubs that at the time probably thought they didn't want to highlight it, but I think at that time they had a lot of board members, and the board members might have thought we have a private club and we don't want to showcase it, things like that. I'm being very honest here, but a lot of the places did want to showcase, and I'm sure now they would want to showcase their club because golf needs to grow. It doesn't need to evaporate. Like, they really need to grow the golf industry in the United States and abroad.
Well,
but I highlight everything in depth, and I don't really... I really try to highlight the people that make golf happen and bring it to life in an honest way, in a warm way, and in a way that they would like to bring it across.
We're going to talk about one of those gentlemen in just a minute here, but before we move on, Diana, I just want to just remind the listeners, if they're just tuning in here a few minutes late, my special guest this evening is Diana DeLucia, and she is the author and photographer of a really fantastic book that she's just released here recently called Golf Club World Behind the Gates. And we're just talking a little bit about the book, some of the different courses that are in it, and obviously for time restrict, we can't get into everything here, but we're going to talk about a little bit. And I just want to remind you that if you want to call into the program, you can certainly call in at 646-716-4667 if you want to say hello to Diana or just maybe have some questions about the book. That, again, the book is called Golf Club World Behind the Gates. And I'm going to ask you, Diana, I wanted to talk about one of the individuals, obviously because most people tuning in here, especially here in the United States and certainly around the world, will recognize the individual I want to talk about, and that, of course, is Rick Dees. And Rick Dees is very, very well known here in the United States and abroad. And he's in your book. He purchased some property. I'll let you talk a little bit more about the story. But one of the clubs that you mentioned here is the Sweetbriar Farm in Kentucky. And he is the owner of the property, and it has kind of a unique story. Share a little bit of that story with us, if you would.
Rick Dees and his wife, Linda, are amazing people, and they have a golf course in Kentucky that's a 9-hole USGA-approved golf course, and it was designed by the late Matt Dye, and he was very young when he designed it, but it's the only course that he designed with the title Golf Course Architect. And I particularly really like this story because it is warm and straight to the heart. The property was found for Rick and his wife by Jerry Bruckheimer and his wife, and they purchased the property. But the story should be read in the book itself. The interview is very heartfelt, and I think that it's a great story for anyone who's into golf to read. I'm very particularly proud of that story. It was very hard to get onto the property, but with a lot of help from people in the industry, it happened, and you can notice that I'm particularly emotional about that story because it is very warm. Likely one of the most endearing stories in the whole book.
Well, what I found very interesting about it is reading through, and obviously I don't want to give everything away that's in your book. I want people to buy it and read it for themselves. But what I found really interesting is Rick was not really in the market for a golf course. It's not like he was looking, I want to buy a golf course and do this and do that. He was actually just looking for property in in the United States and in that particular area. He being originally from North Carolina, and his wife grew up in Indiana. But what was interesting about the story was that once they were sort of introduced to the property, that whole vision sort of came about. And as you indicated, Matt was the architect behind the golf side of it. But it really wasn't something that he had sort of stepped into that, I'm going to go out and buy a golf course. He was really looking for property, I'm sure partially as an investment, but also he wanted to do. And what's unique about it is that it's a farm. It's an actual working farm.
That's correct, yes.
So it's not just a golf course with 9 holes and what have you. It's a working farm. And, of course, Rick, like many of us now, is more on the organic side of things. And again, I won't get into all the details of it, but it is a very, very interesting story. And I was reading through it earlier. And definitely want to make sure that you pay specific attention, for those of you that get the book, to this particular story, because this is a fascinating one. But I just found it very interesting because the fact that they went out there not looking for a specific golf environment. They were looking for something different, and it just the two sort of got married together. They found a great piece of property and were able to turn it into something more. And I can see why it would be very heartwarming for you to do this story.
I totally agree with you. And they have a great program there. The superintendent, Charles Griffith, he actually works with the colleges in the neighborhood that are into, agriculture, insects, anything at all. They help out the universities in the neighborhood, and they teach them about insects and grasses and things like that, which you can imagine in Kentucky. They have the bluegrass and the bent grass.
Oh.
It's really a beautiful piece of property. It's not a Sabonic, but is an absolutely stunning golf course with amazing grass. And I know that Rick would say that Matt Dye created a world-class facility, and he has.
Well, the interesting, and again, looking through the book at some of the other courses, and especially in today, what I liked about this particular course is the fact that it's very simple, but yet very, as you say, what Rick would probably say was a world-class golf course. What I liked about it is a lot of the designs that are out there now are sort of going in a different direction than what some of the traditional. This almost gives you the feel of a more traditional type golf course, with certainly some more modernist to it. But when I look at some of the other photos in your book, where there's severe undulation in the greens and the bunkers, I'm 6'4", and I probably fit in most of the bunkers and still have some room above my head. But what was very interesting about this is he really took the lay of the land, and it mentions here in your article, or in the book, where he sort of looked at that area. It was about 100 acres, he says here, and it just looked like a golf course. So he let Matt more or less go to it, and that's what he did. And he developed a beautiful piece of property and turned it into something even more magnificent. And Kentucky is a fabulous state to do it in too. But it is a great story, and one of many in here. And we're going to talk about some more. One of the other courses that you talk about in your book is by another celebrity, which most of my listeners will know, Justin Timberlake. And the course is called Miramichi. And it's, as I said to you earlier, Diana, I think it was featured in a story on the Golf Channel I think a couple of years ago. And what's very unique about this is Justin is very forward-thinking when it comes to the environment. And he wanted to be involved in a project that was unlike any other golf course. And I'd really like you to maybe tell us a little bit about that so that the listeners will understand exactly what I'm getting at here.
Miramichi is hard to explain. It's in a place where I'd not even expect there to be a golf course, let alone one owned by Justin Timberlake. It's in Millington, Tennessee, and he played golf on the course when he was a child, and he bought the property and developed it, and he wanted to make a environmental mecca that was accessible to the general public. It's not a private course. He wanted it to be female friendly, and he wanted it to be family friendly, and he wanted it to be a professional PGA quality course so that you could play championship golf on the course. So he had a lot of objectives, and they followed them through. They have scientists on the property that have even improved the water quality of the properties like below them. The water flow has improved the environmental quality of the water and the soil. They pretty much, you have to read it. That chapter is very interesting. They are the first club in the United States that were certified an Audubon sanctuary.
Right.
And they also, I do believe, have very fast greens.
Well, I remember going back to and I said earlier, I believe it was on the Golf Channel that and I'm sort of recalling from memory, and of course my memory is not as good as it used to be, but I believe he was on a segment. It might have been Play Like the Pros or something, and he went through some of the different holes, and I remember it looking uniquely different than any other course I'd ever seen. And, he talked about it, and I know he was very passionate because of the fact that he was very, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess conscious of the environment around, and didn't want to get into what a lot of the courses, and this isn't a criticism to a lot of other courses out there, but obviously there's a lot of chemicals that are used in maintaining some of these courses, and he didn't want to go down that route. He wanted to have a facility that was very environmentally friendly, to say the least, and he certainly accomplished that, and he's been very well received as a result of it. A lot of people, I know that he has a tournament every year that he hosts, and I'm not sure if it's at Miramichi or not, but he's certainly been a great person to get into the game, being a young gentleman himself, and to be out there and trying to help move the industry in a way that's a little bit more, as I said, environmentally friendly, and he certainly has done that by stepping out there and using his celebrity for something good like that. And kudos to Justin for doing that. What were some of the other things that impressed you when you were there visiting?
What impressed me about Miramichi was they not only do they have a golf course that is environmentally friendly, they also work on a line of products called Miramichi Green. And Lowe's has just taken on that product, actually, I do believe, in Texas. So Miramichi Green is a fertilizer that has no artificial, I would say from my understanding, it's kind of like a wine from a specific region. This would be a agricultural fertilizer from a region that would specifically fit that region. That's the best that I can explain it. And it would be made from waste products and byproducts from that particular region. So from my understanding, it would mean that if you had a restaurant or a house or whatever your property was, they would use the ingredients from your waste to create a fertilizer that would fit that environment. That's the best I could explain it.
Wow. And that's what's really interesting. As the industry moves in a different direction, as more and more people are becoming aware of their surroundings and trying to do what they can to protect the environment, it's great that somebody has come out, and I really hope that a lot of the new development that's coming, and I know that they are going in that direction, that a lot of the new development out there sort of takes a note from what Justin has done here with his club, and produces some new golf courses that have that sort of mindset behind it. Because one of the things that I've loved playing golf since I was very, very young. I mean, I started at age 7. I'm going to be 50 next year, and I've always enjoyed the aesthetics of a golf course. I just loved it. But as I got older, and understood what it took to maintain There is a lot of things, a lot of hard work by some of the superintendents now at the golf courses. But there's also been over the years, and I know that they're changing it now, but there have been a lot of chemicals used on the golf courses in order to maintain that lush green look. And so I'm really hoping that a lot of the newer courses that are coming out now, even here in the United States, that they start to gravitate away and come in with some new technology and new ways, much like Justin is doing, sounds like he's doing here, that can avoid that and protect more of the environment. Well,
Justin, he had hired a couple of scientists, Bud Smart and Russ Bodie, and they really helped him formulate this entire project. And if you read the interviews, you will notice how in-depth they are, because I spoke to them in depth. It's actually a dual interview. And they wrote the GEO manual, which is a environmental organization manual. Right. And that's being used by globally.
As it should. Let me ask you something, too. I noticed here in some of the notes that obviously in the culinary end of things, that Justin's some of the food, some of the recipes are shaped from, I guess, his grandmother's recipes.
That's
tell
correct.
us a little bit
yes.
about that end of it. Obviously, living in the South, I can relate to that because I'm enjoying some of the southern hospitality here while I'm living in the United States. Tell us a little bit about what inspired that end of it.
Well, I'm Australian, so I kind of identify with the South. I've only been here for 11 years of my almost 50 years. And I identify with catfish because I fished for them when I was younger. I grew up on a farm near a river. But I would say the recipes and what is special about Miramichi is they have a young female chef who's only 22 years old that's the director of catering.
Wow.
And she is really special. She's very talented. And I wouldn't focus so much on Justin's grandmother, although her desserts are absolutely spectacular. I'd focus
That's what
on
I'm reading.
Mickey Carver, who has created some amazing recipes and runs the entire catering department at Miramichi. So we include some of Grandma's recipes for dessert, like the blueberry, I think it's a blueberry cobbler or crumble or something like that. And they're spectacular, but Mickey's recipes like is it the drunken pork roast and the catfish?
I believe so, yes.
And the catfish are absolutely spectacular. And she's only 22, and she runs the entire catering department.
Wow.
Which is a really difficult feat for someone so young, but she's incredibly talented, and she's very, very positive, and she's very confident. And I'm pretty sure that's why they chose her, because I couldn't even, in the realm of my culinary background, imagine that someone could be 22 and running an entire department.
Well, obviously, much like yourself, she had a passion for something that she enjoyed and pursued that passion, and in herself in a situation where, she's working at a great facility that, and being a young person herself, I'm sure that she's very environmentally conscious, as many of them are becoming nowadays. And so obviously that sounds like it was a great fit for her to be able to work in a facility and expand on some of the things that she focused her career on. So it
Actually,
sounds like it was a very
when
good
I was
fit.
at the property, it was probably last fall, and they were actually about to open their own organic farm on the property.
Wow.
And that would lead us to Puerto Rico, who a club called Royal Isabella has the most amazing, because I'm a food photographer, has the most amazing farm on the property that any chef on this entire planet would want to frequent.
Wow. Now, Royal Isabella, just reading here very quickly, is owned by some tennis stars from the late 60s, Stanley and Charlie Passerelle.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about Charlie and Stanley.
Charlie Passerelle was the number one tennis player in 1967 for the United States. And from what I understand, Stanley and Charlie were also doubles champions. And they have recently opened and bought the land in Puerto Rico, in Isabella. And they built a golf course designed by the late David Pfaff. Well, they bought the course and it was designed by the late David Pfaff, And it is absolutely stunning. It's on beachfront property. But they also did more than that. They have created an environmental heaven, much the same that Timberlake has, in that they have created something that is more than just a golf course. It's an environmental heaven. It's a golf heaven. It's a resort. They have rescued 100 dogs from the neighborhoods. You could tell 100 stories about Stanley and Charlie Passerelle. They have a family environment. They love people. And Charlie Passerelle has a great friendship, or had a great friendship, with Arthur Ashe. So they have that story to tell, and everything about them is emotional, family, and golf and the environment. And I would recommend anybody visit Royal Isabella.
Let me ask you, just kind of going back a little bit earlier in our conversation when I first asked you about what sort of was the motivation behind this book. What I find very interesting is, because originally you started off, as you indicated, really sort of pursuing the culinary end of it, because that's something that you've focused much of your career on. But as you started getting into these stories, did it kind of leave you with, I guess, a feeling that there was much more than just the food aspect? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is there was... Well,
that was what it was, because I was used to, in my previous career, highlighting only chefs. And I realized that at that time that these chefs that I was covering with my partner, they had these amazing stories. They didn't just become a chef because they were good at cooking. They became a chef because they had to work their way up. And a lot of them, they came from nothing, and they worked really hard, and they had no education. They made their own education, and they became who they were through hard work and traveling the world. And then when I started to talk to the people in the golf industry, I realized that they were no different from the people in the culinary industry. They made a dream and they made it happen. If you look at there's many stories in the project that, if you read the interviews, they start from nothing and they work their way up to having their dream life because they simply believe.
Right.
They believe in hard work and they believe in effort and they make it happen. And it doesn't matter whether they're from China or they're from Portugal. Their stories are very similar.
Would you say that that's a common thread throughout your project?
Most definitely. Yes, because I believe in, I believe in people and humanity, and I believe that if you really, really, truly want to do something, you can make it happen.
If you had one thing, and I know it's going to be very difficult to sort of narrow it down to just one, so I'll be generous and let's say 3 things that you want people to take away from this book, what would that be?
3 things? I would say...
I'll give you 3. I was only going to give you 1, but being I'm generous, it's Halloween, I'm going to give you 3
Making it
tonight.
difficult. 3
now,
things...
If you need to do more, that's fine.
I would say forget about the photography, even though that's my career. But if you actually read the content and the interviews with these amazing golf industry professionals, you will notice a common thread, as you said, of hard work, persistence, enjoyment, and career for the rest of their life. And they all came from a different environment. but they all had one thing in common. They all wanted to live this life of golf, and they all achieved it.
This is, just to add one in here, this is what I take away from this book, and again, not to distract from the great photography and that, but what it does for me, looking through this book, and again, somebody who comes from the golf end of things, makes me look at a golf club much differently than what I had before, and let me explain why I say that. A lot of times when you're driving up and you're seeing a great golf course that looks fantastic, you're thinking about playing. But what you've done here very eloquently is taken a group of golf courses that you've had the pleasure of seeing and experiencing, and actually told the story of that golf club.
Exactly. And I don't want to actually. I don't play golf, but if I did play golf, and I'm planning to have lessons, if I did play golf and I was reading my book, I would say, I want to meet Brian Shaw from Doonbeg, or I want to meet this person from Sabonic because I've read about them. I want to go there and I want to play golf at Doonbeg, and I want to meet Brian Shaw because he seems like a really interesting and fun character.
And that's going to lead us into that particular segment. Let me just very quickly, before we get back to Doonbeg, I do want to ask you some things about that, but let me just very quickly just do a couple of things here. I just need to make a couple of announcements again, just to remind those that are tuning into the program a little bit later. I'm joined here by my very special guest, Diana DeLucia, who's put together a fantastic book we've been talking about here for the last little while, and it's called Golf Club World Behind the Gates. And it is, I can't emphasize this enough, it's a fantastic book, and I strongly, strongly recommend the listeners out there that you look into getting yourself a copy, and we'll tell you a little bit later on how you can do that. But it's not just a book of pictures, as we've been talking about here. It's a book of really stories about the clubs, about the people that are in the clubs, and it's just a really very well put together book. I can't emphasize that enough, and I think especially with the holidays coming up here, if you've got somebody that really enjoys getting into understanding the history of things, you definitely want to pick up a copy of this book. And it's, as I said, it's not just a book of pictures and great photography, and it's not even a book of just some fabulous recipes, even though there's a lot of good ones in here that I'm going to certainly dabble myself. I don't know how well they're going to come out for me, but I'm going to certainly check them out. They're very, very good. But Diane has very elegantly, as I said, put together stories about all of these different clubs, and it's very, very well worth your time to pick yourself up a copy. And as I said, we'll talk about that a little later. Let me just do one more thing here, Diane. I just got to take a very quick break. I want to introduce you to a product that was introduced to me called the Star Putter Putting Tool. Have a listen.
Hi, this is Ted from Golf Talk Live. Are you looking to make more putts, shoot lower scores, and just play better golf? Now you can with the Star Putter Putting Tool. Simply use the tool 5 minutes before your next round and make 3 to 5 more putts. Practice with Star Putter 15 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week, and lower your handicap after just 10 rounds. Star Putter Putting Tool, available now at starputter.com.
Make sure that you check that out for those of you tuning in here. It's a fantastic little product. A lot of tour pros have been using this. If you check out the starputter.com website, you'll see a list of quite a few prominent players on both the PGA and I believe LPGA and even some of the Champion Tours. So definitely want to check that out and pick yourself up one. It's a great putting tool to help bring your game down to a whole new level. Dana, I wanted to get back to the book here, obviously, and I want to ask you, because you brought it up, tell us a little bit about Doonbeg first, and then I want you to talk us about Brian Shaw. You had indicated that he was quite an interesting character, and you enjoyed speaking with him and meeting with him. Let's talk about the club a little bit first, and then we'll get on to Brian.
Doonbeg is an interesting place. It's situated in Ireland, near Shannon. I would say I flew into Shannon, so I'm saying it's near Shannon. And it's a beautiful lodge and golf club. It is, you come up to the property and it feels like you are in historic Europe, even though the property is not maybe 10, 12 years old, but you look at the property and you think, oh my goodness, this is a really old ancient castle, and it's not. It's very modern. It was designed by Greg Norman, the golf course. They had some really also environmental aspects, and the book covers a lot of environmental aspects, which I'm very proud of. They had to design an entire golf course around a snail that was endangered, and it took them a long time to get the permits to do so. They had to fence off a lot of areas to build the golf course, and they created something really spectacular for any golfer on Earth. Doonbeg is a property that it doesn't matter if the sun is shining or the rain is raining. It is always going to be beautiful.
Now, Buddy Darby is the owner, and you obviously did an interview with him.
At the time, Buddy was the owner. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's obviously changed at this point.
I'm not sure of that, but I have a feeling that he has retired and there has been some changes, but he was instrumental in Doonbeg and Kiwa Island Resort, as you know.
Let me ask you, and then we'll get on to Brian in just a second here. What was the reasoning behind interviewing so many different people from the various clubs, as opposed to just maybe talking with the club pro or obviously you were coming into the culinary side of it? Why did you decide to talk to like as an example here, you talked with Joe Russell, who is the general manager at Doonbeg. What was the reasoning behind interviewing the different components, the different individuals that make up these great golf clubs?
The human element has always been important to me for many reasons for my entire life. And I really, coming from the magazine, we highlighted people, and we even went to the extent that we would highlight like a waiter, or we would highlight a maitre d', and we would highlight, it didn't need to be the owner, it didn't need to be the chef, but we would highlight someone that was absolutely amazing in their career at the restaurant. So that took me to, I don't know anything about golf, so I wanted to, the word I use is illuminate people in that industry, because I found it really interesting because I'm not in the industry. So when I listened to them and talked to them, I was thinking, I need to highlight this because it's really, really interesting and they've worked really hard. If you look at a story like Troy Albert from Sabonic, he's the general manager of Sabonic, and he was instrumental in my project. But when I went in depth to talk to Troy, he has one of the best jobs in golf today, and he came from a family of 53 foster children in Minnesota.
Wow.
And he now has one of the top golf jobs in the entire country at Sabonic. And his story is amazing. And I find those kind of stories very interesting because he didn't come from wealth. He came from a wealth of knowledge, and he built that into a wealth of life. And that's how I would say it. He followed his dreams, and because of his background, that helped his dream come true. And a lot of the people in golf have this similar story.
What's very interesting about this, and as you alluded to earlier, there's a definite pattern throughout this book, but what was very interesting, and it's so true, many of the people that you come across who truly are successful, and that doesn't necessarily mean monetarily successful, although I'm sure many of these are, but just successful in the fact that they love what they're doing, they're passionate about what they're doing, seem to have all started from a very humble background. If you look at history, not just in the golf industry, but anywhere really, you don't often see some of the really truly great stories start from somebody that has a very affluent background. That's not to say that there isn't any, but the majority of them have all sort of worked their way up through the ranks, started, like you said, from really nothing or very little, but had a passion and an inner drive, if you will, and desire to make something of themselves. And it just happened in this particular case, a lot of them, maybe it was golf, or some of them, maybe it was in the architecture side or in the culinary side, as you've expressed earlier. And there's a definite pattern that I see through your book where all of these individuals really came from very humble beginnings, but yet their dreams and their passions were so instrumental in shaping who they became.
That's correct. Not all, but even if they came from a background of success, monetary success or something like that, they also had great parents that taught them values.
Right.
And that would take me to Barnbougle Dunes in Australia, where Richard Sattler, the owner of Barnbougle Dunes, has his entire family working on the property.
Wow.
I mean, he has his
cool.
entire family working on the property, whether it be in culinary, whether it be managerial, whether it be marketing. It's an entire family-based operation, and they are like 35th in the world.
Wow.
That's
I want
a
to
stunning
very quickly.
property.
I want to definitely come back there, but I want to. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, and especially since I'm reading the sort of intro into your interview on Brian Shaw from Doonbeg, and it says very clearly that Mr. Darby, who of course was the owner, said you are the Mick Jagger of golf professionals, and you asked him point blank, how'd you come about that name? That's very intriguing in itself, to be compared to somebody of Mick Jagger's stature. So tell us a little bit about, obviously Brian sounds like he's a very fun and interesting gentleman, and to be in the golf industry as well even makes it that more intriguing. So tell us a little bit about Brian Shaw.
Well, Brian should have called in. Brian's a larrikin. He's fun. He is. He's not just a golf pro. He's a rock star golf pro. He knows everyone. He's traveled to America. He's been everywhere from Kiawah Island to. I mean, you have to read the story. And he looks after people like. They're all. I mean, they're celebrities. He teaches them to play golf. His favorite is the Lord of the Dance, Michael Flatley. He talks about him often. And Brian Shaw has, I don't want to say too much because I would rather Brian comes on the show and that you read his story.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want
Brian's
you to give away.
Brian's the ultimate larrikin. Irish larrikin, fun-loving, having a good time. He is it. If you wanted someone to teach you golf, it's going to be Brian Shaw in Ireland.
I'm just looking here quickly at some of the comments and things here, and I see one of the things you asked him that talked about how he met Lee Trevino, and that alone should give you an indication of his character. I had the pleasure many, many years ago back when I was up at the Canadian Open, and Lee Trevino, of course, was playing still at that time on the PGA Tour. And if you know anything about Lee Trevino, he's quite the character himself, and is always, I found to be one of the most intriguing people in the golf business at that time. Just simply watching him, and of course his caddy Herman. And I know that you're not a big golfer, but what was always fascinating, I've talked about this on the program earlier, what was interesting about Lee Trevino was the fact that he had such a great rapport with his caddy, and it wasn't just the usual, hand me the ball and that sort of thing. They had a lot of banter going back and forth. So I'm sure that there was some very interesting conversation, and again, I don't want to get into giving away too much of the secrets of your book here, but I'm sure it was some very interesting conversation that went on between Lee Trevino and Brian Shaw, just based on what I've read so far. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the stories.
Please read them, but if you want to connect those two, you would have Miguel Suarez Igatria from Royal Isabella Golf Club. And he talks about Lee Trevine and how difficult it was to compete against him.
Oh, and even the best, and I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up. I know that Jack Nicklaus and even Arnold Palmer and many others have all said the same thing. He was a very difficult, he certainly didn't have, and I've mentioned this many, many times on the program in the beginning, certainly didn't have the most picture-perfect swing by today's standards, but Lee Trevino was a definite competitor. So I know that he gave it his all, and of course he enjoyed a lot of success on the PGA and of course later in the Champions Tour.
But he was good at maths, right, Ted? He was good at maths.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. He just was able to work some magic on that golf course, and the story that I shared, and I very quickly, because I don't want to detract from your book, but I've got to say this while you're on the air here. One of the very funny things that happened at the Canadian Open with Lee Trevino was on the Sunday when they were coming up. He was in the second last group. Nicholas was behind him. Of course, Nicholas didn't ever win the Canadian Open, even though he designed the golf course at the time, Glen Abbey. But what was very interesting was Herman was a very large African American who was about, at that time, easily 350 plus pounds. And it was a very hot, steamy day. And as they were coming up the 18th green, Lee had come up a little bit ahead of him. And of course, Herman was back there repairing the divots and whatnot. And when Lee got up to the course, the banter that was going around the course all day long was generally that they didn't think Herman was going to make it around the course because it was so hot. And Lee recognized that and heard a lot of the comments coming out of the crowd. So when he got up onto the 18th green, he put his towel out on the green and got down on his hands and knees and just bowed profusely as Herman walked up the rest of the. And you had to obviously be there and see the experience. But at that time, there was roughly about 38,000 people around the 18th green because of the last couple of groups. And Lee was just obviously a showman, but he was a real gentleman as well, and just really appreciated all the hard work that his caddy Herman had done, and he was just a great guy. And I had the pleasure of meeting him after he finished that round for a few minutes, and just loved hearing some of the stories. But Brian Shaw certainly sounds a very much similar type of personality, that just a fun person to be around, and just somebody that you would want to share and listen to some stories along the way. One more thing I wanted to ask you, so we can come back. Not Indonesia, in Tasmania, you were starting to tell a little bit about Barnbougle.
And you want to hear more about Barnbougle?
Sure.
Barnbougle, for me, I'm Australian, so it's my home course, and it's probably 35 in the world, to my knowledge. It's a Tom Doak course. The Lost Farm is a Core and Crenshaw course. Excuse the mispronunciation. And Barnbougle Lost Farm is very special. It's a beautiful place, but it's very remote. And it's hard to get to. You have to fly into Australia, you have to go into Melbourne, you have to go to Launceston, then you have to drive an hour on rickety roads and roadkill. And when you get there, it is a astonishing property on the ocean. And I have a lot of stories I could share there, but you should read them.
Right.
They have a great team of people there that are larrikins, that are funny, that are not unlike Ireland. They're very close to Doonbeg, and they're very close to Sabonic in the fact that they have similar traits. Sabonic might be very high class, but they have also amazing staff. And Ireland might be a resort, and they may have an amazing array of individuals, but they all have larrikins. And Barnbougle Dunes is a public course, and they have the most amazing facilities, and they have the most amazing courses, and they have larrikins. And they are public and private and a resort. And they all have a similarity. They all have amazing characters, and they all have amazing people, and they all have amazing courses and food.
Now, let me ask you about playing golf. Has doing this book and putting this project together, has it given you a different perspective on golf?
Well, I'm very athletic. I was a marathon runner. I've been a marathon runner all my life. But golf to me was never something I played. But golf now for me, because I have met everyone in the golf industry that I have met, and I've written about them, I'm about to have my first golf lesson.
And you're going to do that in the next, well, I guess now being up in the Northeast, it's a little cool, but you can go into an inside facility if you want. But I can assure you, not from my own personal experience, because I took it up very young, but I know from my sister, Nancy, who I've mentioned on the program. I'm going to throw her under the bus a little bit here. But, she was not somebody that was really brought up in the game. But once she started to play a little bit and get out there, she was sort of bitten by the bug, the proverbial bug, and just loves playing and getting out there and that. So I'm wishing that on you. I hope that the bug will bite you, and once you get out there and start playing and learning the game, because it really is a great game, and there's a lot of fantastic components about it. And
Can I tell you something interesting, Ted?
Sure, I would love to hear it.
I was at Oitavas Dunes in Portugal, and I had my golf, because they always give me a golf cart unless I'm somewhere dangerous, that I could kill myself if I didn't have the golf cart. I was at Oitavas Dunes in Portugal, and I was on top of a sand dune, and I saw a man come running up to the top of the sand dune, and I thought... Right. I really thought that he was coming up to see the view, because I'm not a golfer. I'm a photographer. So I thought that he was coming up to see the view. And he said to me, "Oh, no, I lost my ball." And I thought, really? Open your eyes. So for me, if I played golf, I would play golf, but I would also look at the view, because the view is so spectacular. In the clubs that I have covered, and in the clubs where they really care about the view, they don't look just at the hole to hole, and they don't look at that. The designers like the Dye family and all the golf families, Jack Nicklaus, they don't look at just forward. They look sideways.
Right.
They don't just look forward. They look sideways.
Yeah, the views are so important. And it's interesting that you make that point, and thank you for sharing that with us. But one of the things that is really a little bit of a shame in golf today, because it has gained so much momentum over the years, if I was to have a criticism, this would be it. They're so, and I understand from a financial standpoint why some of them need to do this. Obviously, some of the clubs that you're talking about in your book are in a different category, but a lot of the courses out there, and even some of the resorts here in the United States, the criticism that I would have is they're trying to get so many people through so quickly in such a short period of time, especially in areas of the United States where the seasons are shorter and things like that. And you don't really, one of the greatest aspects of golf, of the game of golf, is the view.
The view is everything. I mean, you can be out there for 4 hours and feel absolute relaxation. It's like a yoga class.
Right, and that's one of the things, as I was saying, one of the criticisms is because the courses are trying to shovel people through so much. And I understand. I mean, some of these courses have cost them a great deal of money. They need to recoup the revenue and things like that. But at the same time, it's taken away from really the enjoyment of the game for a lot of people, and myself included. At times, you get on a course, and and I understand they're doing the job. The marshals are ushering everybody along, and it's almost like a cattle being prodded through a gate. and they're wanting you to get through. And I understand, everybody understands about slow play and things like that, but at the same time, we really need to get back and enjoy the view and enjoy the walk. That's the other thing too. I mean, I don't have a problem taking a cart, but I used to enjoy walking a lot of courses because I could take my time and look around and again, be respectful and mindful of players behind me. But at the same time, I could enjoy, one of the reasons I played golf was to enjoy the view and look around and just enjoy the experience. And that's something that's really been lacking a lot. And I hope that the industry goes back and maybe capitalizes on that a little bit more.
I think they should. I think they should definitely go with the future and go with the environment and go with, this is not just a game. You don't need to be the best at the game because nobody is the best at the game because it's very difficult.
Right.
But you can play the game and you can create a score for yourself. But you can also meet people. You can network. You can meet other business people. You can, have a great time. Who cares if you're the best? You don't need to be the best. Tiger Woods is not even the best.
No. And
you can never be the best. So that's the beauty of the game.
Exactly. It's a constant pursuit, really, in the game of golf. And I think most people that truly understand that are at peace with it. But unfortunately, a lot of people are out there. And obviously, we all want to improve and be able to play better. But to what point, you don't want to certainly sacrifice some of the beauty that's out there on a lot of these resorts and courses. And you certainly, as I've indicated and throughout the program tonight, you've put together really a fantastic book, Diana. It's just, as I said, I've seen a lot of books out there, but it's just, not only is it a great visually, but it's a great read. And just from what I've read so far and what you've explained to us here on Golf Talk Live tonight, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy this book, and I'm going to guard it because it's I don't want to lose this one. This is one that I guarantee that somebody would love to swipe. So I'm going to make sure I put this under lock and key when I'm not reading it. But it's a fantastic book, Diana, and I want to thank you very, very much for coming on Golf Talk Live tonight and sharing a little bit about. I know again it's a very in-depth book with the interviews, and we certainly can't get into everything here. But you certainly give us a little bit of scratch at the surface of what's in here, and I want to strongly urge my listeners to visit. And Diana and I are going to just talk here for another moment or two, and then I'm going to let her enjoy the rest of her evening, and then I'm going to do my wrap-up. But let's just very quickly, if we can, Diana, you and I will just sort of let the listeners know where they can get a copy of the book and some of the other things that you want to tell them. Where can they get a copy?
Well, we can get a copy of Golf Club World on Amazon at Amazon under the book title Golf Club World Behind the Gates. But if you want an autographed copy, you can get it from www.golfclubworld.net, and I will sign that. And if you write me a note, I will sign it to you personally. And I really do believe that golf is the way of the world, and it could potentially change the environment globally.
Well, and you couldn't have put it any better. I agree 100%, and this is one of the other things that has always drawn me to this great game. And a lot of people in business have known this for years. It's a great way to network, as you indicated. It's a great social sport. It's obviously you can play in groups or you can play individually, depending on what, or you can do a little of both, depending on what your particular choice is. Also, you have some websites, Diana, that I would be remiss if I didn't give out, and that one of the websites is www.dianadeluciaphotography.com. You can go and check out some of Diana's other great works, and also golfclubworld.net, and that's where you can also, as she indicated, you can get a copy of her book, Golf Club World Behind the Gates. Diana, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on Golf Talk Live this evening. I had a great time. I enjoyed hearing more about the book, and I'm even more so looking forward to reading it.
And, thank you so much, Ted. You're amazing. Ted's a great guy. He has a great voice for radio, and I think he is awesome, and you should all support him.
Well, I appreciate that, Diana, and the check is in the mail. I'll make sure that I pay you for that wonderful endorsement.
There was no check involved, everyone.
No, this is truly, and I can't emphasize this is truly a fantastic book. For those of you that are tuning in here, and for those of you that missed the live interview, as I've always said, it's an auto-recorded program, so you can tune in and listen to the recorded version. And I'm sad that Brian didn't call in. I guess he didn't get your message, or maybe
I am
busy.
sad that Brian didn't call in, but they're on a different time zone.
Right, obviously in a different time zone, but hopefully you can send him another message and tell him to at least. You can give him the link and he can listen to the interview when he's got some free time. But I would have loved to have had him come on the program, but that's okay. Maybe we'll get him on the next time. Donna, I want to thank you.
I think Ted, Brian will come on the show. He just wasn't awake.
Well, we'll wake him up next time. How's that?
Yeah.
Get him to come on the program. Donna, again, thank
you
very, very much for doing this. I know that you're a busy woman with all that you've got on your plate, and I just want to thank you very, very much. And also what I would like for you to do, if you would, I'm going to put this up on my website and make sure that I'll put the link that they can go.
Are you off the record now?
No, we're still live, so we're not gone yet. No, we're not gone yet, but I'm gonna put the link and everything on my website so that any of the listeners that are tuning in, that if they want to check it out, they can not only go at your website, but if they happen to be surfing on mine, they will have the link and a little bit about the book that they can pick it up and find out where they can get a copy of it. So I'll do that for you, Dinah, for agreeing to come on the program tonight. And I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing a fabulous book. Golf Club World Behind the Gates, sharing some of the stories that are in there, a little snippet of each of the stories, and I appreciate you doing that, and I want to wish you much continued success. I think it's a fantastic book. I know it's going to do very, very well, and I just want to thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, Ted. And thank you, Ted's listeners. It was great. Thank you.
I'm sure they enjoyed it. I know they'll have a great time reading this book as I will. Dinah, thank you one last time, and you have a great evening, and I'm just going to wrap up my program here.
Thank you. No worries. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
All right. Good night. Okay. For those of you that unfortunately tune into the latter part of the program, my very special guest this evening was author-photographer Diana, DeLucia, and she's been working over the last several years on a fantastic book. I'm going to use that word 1,000 times, I'm sure. Fantastic book called Golf Club World Behind the Gates. And it's really filled, as I said in the very beginning in the opening of the show, with some great photography, obviously, and don't want to take away from that. But more importantly, some insightful interviews that she's put together of a lot of the people behind the gates, if you will, of this golf club world. There's some phenomenal people in the golf industry. I agree wholeheartedly with Diana, and I just want to encourage you all to go out and get a copy of that and read it for yourself and see some of the stories and hear some, and also maybe get some good tips on some great culinary recipes that are included in the book as well. And hopefully you'll get an opportunity to travel around and visit some of these courses that Diana has put in the book. And one last time, I'm just going to let you know again where you can get a copy of the book. It's available at Amazon.com, and just search under Golf Club World Behind the Gates, or you can visit directly at golfclubworld.net. And as Diana had indicated, that she will sign a copy for you if you purchase it through that website. So, anyways, make sure that you get a copy of her book. I strongly recommend it. Make a great Christmas gift for that golfer in your family, or for somebody that just enjoys a great read. It's definitely all of the above. And I just want to remind everybody again for next week, Billy Casper is going to be coming on the program with Kent Nobis of Sports, 9 Iron Sports Hydration Drink. They're going to be coming on talking about the drink a little bit in the first half of the program, and then Billy's going to stick around and talk about his new book, The Big Three and Me. and he's going to share some stories, some great stories. I could just imagine that Billy has got some fantastic stories about his tournament play, and we're looking forward to having him on the program. So for those of you that want to make sure that you want to tune in next week, November the 7th, here on Golf Talk Live. That's Thursday, November the 7th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're probably going to run right through till 8 p.m. that night if I can tie Billy Casper down long enough and get some of those great stories. So make sure that you tune in next week. I appreciate you tuning in tonight with my special guest, Diana DeLucia. I hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you that didn't make it for the live performance, stick around, and in a little bit the auto-recorded version will be up and running, and you can tune in and listen to them. Thank you very much. I will see you back here next Thursday, November the 7th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time with my special guest, the legendary Mr. Billy Casper. Have a great evening, everybody. Hope you had a happy and safe Halloween for the little ones out there. God bless, and I will talk to you next week. Have a great evening.